Okay, let's jump right in. Imagine waking up to a completely serene, beautiful morning. You're just relaxing, right? But then your entire reality shatters in a fraction of a second. Today, in this explainer, we're diving into the chilling echoes of August 6, 1945, and we're doing it through the incredibly powerful lens of the acclaimed author Vikram Seth. His poem, A Doctor's Journal Entry for August 6, 1945, puts us right there on the ground during one of the darkest days in human history. It really offers this deeply personal, unfiltered perspective on what was a mass-scale tragedy. The poem starts by setting this vivid scene, quote, "The morning stretched calm, beautiful, and warm." And then suddenly a strong flash. Just put yourself in those shoes for a second. You're enjoying the warmth of a perfect summer day, and literally, in the blink of an eye, your world is permanently fractured. It's such a jarring, abrupt transition, and it perfectly sets the stage for the waking nightmare that's about to follow. Section 1. Vikram Seth's Literary Canvas. So you might be wondering, who is the architect behind these haunting lines? Well, it's Vikram Seth, a Sahitya Academy Award-winning Indian writer. And he's renowned for exploring human fragility against shifting, changing, and corroding backgrounds. And let's be real, no background corrodes quite like Hiroshima. Seth isn't just giving us a dry history lesson here. He's writing about how ordinary human connections either survive or completely break when the world around them literally disintegrates. Moving on to Section 2, the calm before the flash. What's brilliant here is how Seth deliberately lulls us into this false sense of security. It's the calm before the ultimate storm. On one hand, we have a doctor, sprawling half-clad, just relaxing and watching shimmering leaves. Then violently, that peace is interrupted by blinding flashes. At first, he actually debates if they're just magnesium flares, but of course, they're not flares. It's an atomic bomb. And that realization hits as his roof, his walls, his entire world collapses into timber and swirling dust. Section 3. A world in debris. In mere fractions of a second, that tranquil morning is totally obliterated. Look at how terrifyingly compressed this timeline of destruction is. Within moments of the flash, the doctor's home just crumbles. His clothes are inexplicably blown right off his body, and his immediate instinct shifts from sheer confusion to this desperate, panic-stricken search for his wife, Yekasan. He's literally terrified he might bleed to death before he can even find her. And the physical toll? It's just staggering. We're talking a splinter jutting from a mangled thigh, a torn cheek, and blood gushing from what he fears is a severed neck artery. But here's the really wild part. The doctor assesses these terrifying injuries with a remarkably calm clinical detachment. He casually dislodges a piece of glass from his own face. This clinical detachment from a medical professional actually amplifies the emotional horror for us as readers. We are witnessing a mind in deep, deep shock, trying to process the absolute impossible. Okay, Section 4, March of the Scarecrows. As the doctor and his wife stumble out into the burning streets, they enter this surreal hellscape. But what's fascinating is how the absurdity of social niceties persists, even in the apocalypse. Get this, the doctor trips and politely gasps out, "Excuse me, please excuse me." But then he realizes the obstacle on the ground is actually the severed head of a man crushed by a fallen gate. It's such a chilling detail, right? It really highlights how our brains cling to normal, everyday habits, even when normalcy is completely dead. The other survivors they encounter next are described as these shadowy forms, ghosts and scarecrows marching in a blank, lifeless parade. But why call them scarecrows? Well, it's because their arms are stretched straight out in front of them. The friction on their severe burns causes so much excruciating pain that they have to hold this highly unnatural posture simply to prevent their own chafed flesh from rubbing together. It's just horrifying to picture. The surreal nightmare just continues. The doctor sees a completely naked woman and child in his path, and his mind desperately tries to rationalize the horror. He asks himself this bewildered question: had they come back from the bath? It isn't until he sees another naked man that the horrific truth finally dawns on him. The sheer, unimaginable force of the atomic blast had literally stripped everyone in the city of their clothes. That brings us to Section 5, the eerie silence. Amidst all these gruesome injuries and spreading fires, the most haunting aspect of this entire ordeal actually isn't what was seen. It's what was completely missing. Despite unimaginable physical pain, like the old woman whose face was marred with suffering, there was no sound. Seriously, no crying, no screaming, absolutely no wailing in the streets. So what does this mean? This silence represents a collective trauma so deep and profound that it rendered an entire population completely numb. The shock was so absolute that it entirely bypassed the body's natural urge to vocalize pain. It's this incredibly powerful reality of an experience where the suffering is simply too deep for tears or even words. Section 6. The devastation of war. Now, let's zoom out from the micro-narrative of the doctor for a second. We can see that Seth isn't just recounting a historical event here. He's forcing us to confront massive, enduring themes. Through these visceral, terrifying images, he delivers a very potent anti-war message. He's showing us the terrifying unpredictability and fragility of human life, and how quickly material existence, our houses, our clothes, our safety, can vanish in a single flash. Yet, even embedded in all that darkness, we also see the innate drive for survival, resilience, and that deeply human instinct to help others. I mean, the doctor continually worries about his hospital staff, despite his own legs literally failing him. To really drive this impact home, Seth makes a very deliberate structural choice. He achieves this emotional whiplash by writing the poem as a continuous flow. It is completely devoid of stanza breaks. This relentless, uninterrupted structure perfectly mirrors the unbroken, chaotic reality of the bomb's aftermath. It gives us, as readers, no room to pause, no space to even take a breath. And that's exactly what it was like for the victims on that fateful day. Ultimately, this absolute silence is the lasting legacy of the explosion in the doctor's mind. Silence was common to us all. I heard no cries of anguish or a single word. It stands as an unforgettable testament to a suffering so immense that it completely extinguished the very human impulse to cry out. You know, when we look at history purely through the lens of statistics and military strategy, we often lose the human truth. So I want to leave you with this. How do we measure the true cost of war when the deepest human wounds are the ones that make absolutely no sound? It's something that really sticks with you. I highly encourage you to seek out and read Vikram Seth's complete poem for yourself to fully experience its quiet, devastating power. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and we'll see you next time.